Of excitement around the event here this morning. Pete Souza alongside Iowa State great John Nouns as we take a look at the pack. Some ready to separate themselves. And John, we got a great look at a great race this morning with the women, and we see now the national rankings coming into today. Oklahoma State atop the list.
This men's race is going to be absolutely electric. Oklahoma State comes in ranked number 1 in the country. They slayed the juggernaut last year, Northern Arizona. But BYU second, Iowa State fourth. I can't remember ever seeing a conference meet where you had 3 teams in the top 4 all expected to be contending for the podium finish at Nationals later this month.
Yeah, you described this race with the potential of being absolutely electric, and one of the reasons, several of the reasons, are some of the individuals we see right here. Brian Musau, somebody you got to talk about when you're talking about cross country in the Big 12 and in the country.
Exactly. Brian Musau, one of the favorites here today, not only for this Big 12 race today, but also in the national picture too. He's unofficially ranked, anywhere from 1st to 4th nationally. He comes in as our defending Big 12 champion from a year ago. He won it last year in Ames, Iowa on a cold day, and he's a sophomore this year. And we're definitely looking to see how he looks today. But he's got his hands full with these other guys. Solomon Kipchoge, the freshman star from Texas Tech, and Brian's own teammate, Denis Kipinjetich.
Yeah, Kipinjetich and Musau really kind of mirroring what we saw earlier today, or the possibility of what we saw earlier today with the women's race, Kaylee McCabe and Joy Naucott. But back to Musau bursting onto the scene, that could be an understatement. Last year, his freshman year, was absolutely dominant, and he has followed it up so far with the sensational sophomore campaign.
Exactly, and in addition to what we see on the screen here today, you also need to know Brian Musau last year ran 13:13 on the track for 5K. That was good for number 6 all-time in the NCAA history last year. He did that as only a freshman. 13:13 is incredible. And he looks to be in equal, if not better, shape this year around.
And if you're just joining us here, let's take a look at the course map. John, you had a chance to take a loop around this yourself, running on the course yesterday, and a different feel, right? We're at a country club or a golf course, I should say. Not the usual track, a little unorthodox today for these men.
Yeah, and so it's the same course essentially as what the women did, except for the men, they've got an extra 2K loop to get to that 8K distance. But like we talked about for the women, there are some tight turns, maybe some narrow spots and things like that. Maybe the footing is not perfect all the way through it, but it's still a good course, and I think that we'll see, like the women did, they strung it out early so you could kind of avoid getting jammed up in those tight areas on the course. I'll be curious to see if the same thing happens on the men's side. I'm a little bit worried if it's a big pack, it might be difficult to navigate some of those turns early on.
Yeah, and some of those turns, they were negotiated flawlessly by the women this morning, but different pack of runners, different mindset, different mentality. Could be a different outcome. We saw in the women's race early on, Kaylee McCabe just separated herself and didn't have any trouble.
She left no doubt about it on the women's side. We'll see what happens here on the men's race as they get started. Hopefully we don't have another recall like we had on the women's side.
Yeah, earlier this morning, the women's race, we had a runner fall in the first 100 meters. So we went back and did it over again.
Looks like we've got the BYU men. I think that's them on the right side of the screen.
A slight mist falling here in central Texas, 67 degrees. Wind blowing about 8 miles per hour out of the south. We are underway here in Waco, Texas. The men's 8K in the Big 12 2024 cross-country championships.
And we see that line, that wall of runners getting out quick. We got an Oklahoma State athlete out front and center, along with that BYU team over on the right side of the screen. Like I said, I think with the tight turn early on, I think at around 1K into this race, people want to make sure they're in solid position before they get there.
Some of the rain in the air has actually kept our drone camera grounded, so we've got a cart cam look that you can't miss and don't want to miss that you're seeing right now. We will let you know when we get that drone back up. You see some of the leaves on the ground. That could become a bit of an issue too at the slick surface.
Yeah, it is. It has started a mist here today. It's still, the temperature's pretty cool, especially down here in Texas. It's some pretty good weather. Nothing like what we're probably going to see in Wisconsin at the national meet later this month, but good day for running.
As you see the men make it over that first patch of turf, which goes over a cart path here at the golf course.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit at the start of this race about the incredible teams that we have in this field, but of course when you've got these great, incredible teams, with that comes great athletes. And, you know, by my count, you know, I see 15, maybe even 20 guys in this field individually who could be all-American caliber guys at the national meet. So when you compare that number to the fact that you've got 15 all Big 12 athletes, you can make the case that it'll be easier to be all-American than it is to be all Big 12 this year, which is wild to think about.
Well, it speaks to the impact that these runners are going to have at a national level here. And you mentioned it in Wisconsin. Not too long from now.
This will be a national title preview for the team race, and I think on the individual side as well. This race, because there's so many less runners, it's not really the same as the national meet, just because you've got so many more bodies to contend with at the national meet. Big 12s, while we do have new schools and more athletes than in years prior, it doesn't come close to the number of people that we've got at nationals. But when it comes to the top of the pecking order, it doesn't get any better than the Big 12.
So not too much separation here early on in the men's 8K.
And like we had for the women's race, I'm expecting we'll get our first split not until the 3K mark. So we'll go the first 3K of this race without really a super clear idea of how the team races stack up. But, you know, you've got Oklahoma State. They're the defending champions, conference and nationals. They slayed the juggernaut that was Northern Arizona last year, and now this team looks just as good, if not better, than last year's team. And, you know, I talking a little bit with Dave Smith in the preseason. He had a great quote to Let's Run. He said, he used an analogy to climbing.
Climbing the mountain.
Climbing the mountain. He said, you know, when you're climbing a mountain, you're paying attention, you're watching what you're doing, and you're focused on every step. When you get to the top, that's when you think you've made it. You start to relax, you let your guard down, you take a picture, have some lunch, and that's when you step off the cliff and die. When I read that, I thought that was just an awesome quote. It shows that Dave Smith, who's been at Oklahoma State for so long, he's seen some great athletes and, you know, great teams come through his program. While this team is the favorite on paper, he also understands the danger in knowing that the outside world has been telling his team for the last year that they're this unstoppable juggernaut, that they can't be beat. They beat NAU last year, and now it's their time to shine. He knows that there's danger in that, and he definitely emphasized to me yesterday that the race isn't won on paper, and when you've got schools like BYU and Iowa State, they're going to be taking a big swing at this Oklahoma State team here today.
You cannot relax.
Yeah, coaching's a stressful professional, you know, and I think you probably think that, oh, if I just had like the best team in the country, everything would be easy and I could relax. And I think maybe if you talk to some of the top coaches, they'd say, no, that's actually when I'm the most stressed out.
So we see the two Texas Tech runners and the two Oklahoma State runners up front, guys who we talked about, joined by a member of the Arizona State team.
Yeah, and I think we've got Iowa State runner Robin Quamoy Barra for Iowa State there up in that lead pack. You know, he's definitely someone that we should keep an eye on. He's had a great season. He's only a freshman for the Cyclones. He ran super aggressively earlier this year at Nuttycombe. He faded a little bit towards the end of that race, but then he came back at pre-nationals and seemed to run a smarter race. But he's certainly one of the best athletes in the country and one of the best athletes here today.
And you see the track line with spectators out early this morning. Of course, sticking around for the men's final.
Yeah, you see a couple Oklahoma State athletes up there early on like we expected. I think that's Brian Musau on the right side of the screen.
Denis Kipnietich, as they have just passed us at our broadcast location.
And I think running in second, I think that's Laban Kipkemboy for the Cowboys. Laban Kipkemboy has had a great season. He's a redshirt freshman for the Cowboys. Third place finish at the Cowboy Jamboree behind Brian Musau. Second place finish behind Denis Kipnietich as well.
So that Oklahoma State squad is stacked.
Yeah, you go down this list, you know, one of the things Dave Smith has said is that they go 10 guys deep. And obviously at the national meet, you can only run 7 guys. Dave Smith probably wishes he could run 10 guys because he's got so many elite runners on this team. Someone extremely good is going to have to, you know, sit on the sidelines later this year. So we're 7.5 minutes into this race. We've got a pack that looks like it's broken away a little bit, but still a lot more men in this top pack than what we saw on the women's side.
Is there an expectation for you, a point in the race where you expect to see 2 or 3 guys break away?
I think in general for these cross-country races, you don't expect to see a big pack all the way to the last 800 or the last K. I think by the time we get to a K to go, I think it'll be at most a 2 or 3 person race. It just seems like that's how these usually go. Even though we have so many elite athletes in this field, I think the best of the best are going to separate at some point, as it looks like they're coming up right here on the 3K mark.
Which could give us an opportunity for our splits here.
Yep, 8:20 roughly for that 3K. Out quick like we expect, and there's a nice shot of those Oklahoma State men. I see Brian Musau, Laban Kipkemboy, and then Denis Kipnietich sort of in that second row, followed by a pack of BYU runners.
Ernest Cheryoff in second place for Texas Tech, and Solomon Kipchoge right behind him.
Yeah, and we should talk about these Texas Tech men. They have a couple really good athletes. Ernest Cheryoff from Texas Tech, he's a freshman, I guess sort of in his second year. He arrived last spring for the indoor and outdoor track meet, came out of nowhere in the Big 12 indoor meet to win that 5,000 meters in Lubbock. That was a surprise race, but once you win a Big 12 championship, you're not anonymous anymore. Everyone is going to pay attention to you, and they're not going to let this guy get away from them like they did for that Big 12 race. And then we have another Texas Tech athlete, Solomon Kipchoge, another freshman, and he actually beat Ernest earlier this year at the Arturo Barrios Invitational with a course record 22 minutes and 1 second 8K. I've never seen that course. I don't know how fast that is, and we talk about how times are kind of tough to compare and meaningless, but that, if you just take it at face value, 22 minutes for an 8K is mind-boggling. And we should point out, too, that Solomon has run a 59-minute, 37-second half marathon.
Wow.
Sub 60 minutes for the half marathon. So, you know, we talk about the credentials of a Brian Musau, but all these guys in this field know that they have some of the best competition in the country that they're going to have to beat if they want to be a Big 12 champion individually.
And there is the top of the men's team leaders, and you see Oklahoma State, BYU, and Texas Tech 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly. This Iowa State team is dangerous. You take a look at how they typically like to race. They're kind of sneaky a lot of times. They're ranked fourth, but I was watching them at pre-nationals earlier this year, and you're watching the race and you're seeing the live splits, and you're like, okay, where's Iowa State? Where's Iowa State? They're like buried, you know, in the team standings halfway through the race, and you're thinking like, man, this is a tough day for the Cyclones. And then the final results come in, and they get second. And you're like, oh, okay, that's where they belong. It's a good day. They just, you know, Coach Sudbury likes to run smart. He's a great coach, and he knows how to coach his guys, and he knows how to maximize his guys at nationals. That's the one thing about Iowa State is when you take this move on the men's side from 8K up to 10K, Iowa State always believes that they can run better over 10K than over 8K, and you know that's a mantra for them. Lots of teams, lots of individuals have difficult days sometimes at nationals, but you look historically at this Iowa State team, they don't really have bad days at nationals. And look at that BYU pack there, and on the back end of that.
A lot of
pack.
Oklahoma State, a lot of Texas Tech, a lot of BYU up towards the front.
Yep, and then I think that was Victor Shitsama there trailing that front pack. And here's some Iowa State guys. Gable Sieperda, the senior, the experienced veteran for Iowa State. An excellent steeplechase athlete too, mixed there. And on the back end of that,
a lot of
pack.
Oklahoma State, a lot of Texas Tech, a lot of BYU up towards the front.
Yep, and then I think that was Victor Shitsama there trailing that front pack. And here's some Iowa State guys. Gable Sieperda, the senior, the experienced veteran for Iowa State. An excellent steeplechase athlete too, mixing it up in cross country.
The mist seeming to have backed off here over the course of the last few minutes. But the track is a little wet out there, and something to keep in mind towards the second half of this event. Remember, women's 6K, men's 8K.
Yeah, and we still see a nice big pack for this front group there. We've got the 3K splits showing up on the left side of the screen. So you've got tied for third place, it looks like Texas Tech and Iowa State at the 3K mark at 84 points. BYU 15 points behind Oklahoma State. This is a big day for both those programs. You kind of have to balance how all in you're going to go to try to beat Oklahoma State, knowing that you're going to have to see them again at the national meet. I know these coaches are very competitive. They want to do everything they can to beat Oklahoma State. That's why we run these races, but you also at the same time have to make sure that your guys have a place to go training-wise and performance-wise by the time you get to the national meet later this month.
So it looks like Kemboy duking it out up front with a group of Texas Tech runners, and you mentioned the young Iowa State runner too. You can see him back there, and that is Musau on the right as well.
Yep, and I'm keeping an eye on that BYU pack of guys. They're a little bit hidden on the camera, but I see a number of BYU guys right in that back row of that front pack. They're all just kind of stalking those leaders. And one of the cool things about Big 12s, and it's a little bit less so now that you've got some more teams, but it's a lot of times feels like a dual meet or a tri meet. So it's like head-to-head. Oh, looks like a couple people
spun out on that track. You saw it, and we had talked about that turf that has been laid down over the cart paths here at Cottonwood Golf Course in Waco, and someone may have lost a step or two there.
Yeah, it was tough to tell if people weren't prepared for the turn that they were going to make or if they slipped a little bit on that carpet. But either way, you saw kind of a move get made.
Again, there has not been any kind of driving rain here in Central Texas today, but it is wet. A consistent mist and drizzle.
And I'm seeing now, I think the Iowa State Robin Kwamoy-Bera is up in about second place now after this 5K split. I think these 5K splits were probably right before we saw that shifting going on.
What do you make of that shift? I mean, that turn seemed to have taken something out of some of these runners.
Yeah, it was tough to tell exactly what happened in real time, but obviously we've talked about how it's been misting a little bit. It might have made some of those carpets a little bit slick.
How hard would it be for someone who has just fallen a step or two off after that turn to regain momentum and get back towards the front of the pack?
Well, with the pace that these guys are running right now, it's tough, but these are really good athletes, and it's just going to take a little bit more out of them to catch back up. But take a look at these team scores now through 5K. You've only got 10 points separating Oklahoma State and BYU. That is nothing.
I think we're going to get another look at that turn where it appears quite possible that two runners go in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the things I was a little bit worried about yesterday. It's why this preparation is so key, and it can be kind of difficult sometimes. if you're just following the leader.
How big of a setback is that?
Well, it looked like it really only affected 2 athletes, so I think probably pretty limited. Take a look here at those Iowa State men. Brian Musau, Laban Kipkemboy.
Yeah, Oklahoma State out towards the front again.
And now we've got one more nice split here, 5.9K. We'll have to take a look and see how that team score has shifted. Oklahoma State was only 10 points ahead of BYU at the 5K point.
The excitement starting to build here in Central Texas. The last time we clocked in, Kip Kemboy was at 1. Brian Musau, who we see there, was at 2. Looks like he may be in 1 all alone by himself.
Yeah, and look here that we've got the scores for 5.9K. Oklahoma State has moved ahead a little bit more, increased that margin of lead, 34 points to 52 points. Iowa State, like we talked about earlier, kind of just sneaking by. Look for them to move up over this last 2K. But Brian Musau with a big move right now.
Everything coming into this event, living up to his reputation, and we're seeing a lot of separation now between Brian Musau and the pack.
Yeah, Brian Musau looks really good right now. He hasn't completely broken away from the rest of the runners, but he has opened up a bit of a gap. Brian Musau, of course, earlier this year beat Habden Samuel from New Mexico, who many consider to be the favorite to win nationals. But in my mind, if you've beaten the guy who's considered the favorite, shouldn't you be the favorite? So I think it'll be a great race in Wisconsin between Musau, Samuel, Graham Blanks at Harvard. But certainly right now, Brian Musau taking control of this loaded men's Big 12 championship field.
And is that Casey Klingler?
Yeah, there's a BYU person running second.
I think that is Casey Klingler, duking it out with a member of the Texas Tech cross-country team, which we would assume would be either Ernest Cheryoff or Salman Kipchoge.
Casey Klinger, the super senior from BYU, he's been one of the most consistent men in the NCAA cross-country. He's a 4-time All-American cross-country runner, with his first one being all the way back as a freshman in 2017, before he went on his mission.
7K splits, there you have it. It is Klingler in second and Kipchoge third, but of course Musau with that 3-second lead as of the last time they clocked in.
It's great having more of these live splits for this men's race. It gives you a sense of the changing dynamics for the team race. You see these top 14, top 15 guys, lots of All-American runners in this field. Joash Rudo from Iowa State running in 13. He's sort of the mystery man for the Cyclones. He showed up on campus about a month ago, has run 8:22 in the steeplechase. This is his season debut, and he looks good right now for the Cyclones, running in 13th.
Showed up a month ago. Where's he been?
Well, I don't know exactly the full story, but if I had to guess, I'd imagine there's probably some issues with his visa getting over from Kenya. So
making himself at home, right?
Exactly. Yeah. One thing Coach Sudbury has said, he's got a couple international athletes who are young, and he's talked about that's a big adjustment for these guys to come over from Kenya. But he said that his guys have adjusted great, getting used to just life on a American college campus. It's a big adjustment for these guys, but when it comes to this cross-country course and running, these guys are excellent.
Well, Musau is excellent right now.
Absolutely. Take a look through 7K. Oklahoma State 41 points, BYU 47 points. With 1K to go, this race almost could not be tighter. BYU only 6 points behind Oklahoma State. This will be an incredible last K. Every athlete for this Oklahoma State and BYU team understands that they're neck and neck and they're giving it everything they've got this last stretch.
And what you can't see are the other athletes here on the course running towards the finish to get a look at exactly how things will go down the stretch.
And there's our lead cart, Brian Musau, crossing the starting line all the way to the finish.
There's Musau.
Musau will be our back-to-back defending individual champion. Texas Tech, followed by Casey Klinger. That's Kipchoge from Texas Tech. An excellent race for him.
Life at the top once again for Musau.
Robin Koumoy-Bear for the Cyclones coming in. He's had a great season, but it comes down now to this BYU versus Oklahoma State. I see a couple BYU guys just finished right in front of Victor Shitsama. But it will take a few minutes to sort these results out. It's too close to call.
And look at that. BYU, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State, joined by Iowa State now at the top.
I see one of the Thompson twins just crossed for BYU. Lucas Bonds finished for BYU. Lucas Bonds, of course, the excellent middle distance runner for the Cougars. I think he comes in with a, let's see, a 3:54 mile PR. So a middle distance standout who's can get it done on the cross country course as well.
How about Casey Klinger kicking it into gear? And right now, unofficially holding down the third place spot is BYU, you see,
look
up top now.
You've got the BYU guys went 7-8, sort of splitting up that Oklahoma State duo of Dennis and Victor, followed by two more BYU guys. So I count 5 BYU athletes right in the top 12. Oh my goodness.
And the Cougs, the women, remember winning earlier today.
I think we just saw the BYU men take down the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yep, unofficial results.
And if you hear the noise, if you hear the elation, if you hear the celebration, that is the BYU men's cross country team embracing and celebrating.
They just saw the results. And they are celebrating. Wow. Coach Ed Eyestone just pulled off with his team. I think what a lot of people thought was nearly impossible.
You had a feeling something special was happening when close to the front of the pack you had a group of BYU runners sticking together towards the front, and that's where they finished.
And we saw them early on in the race. I pointed out that they were hanging in the back row of that lead pack. They ran a little bit kind of conservative or safe, just tucked in. Nice place to be in terms of energy conservation. And when it came down to the last K, they turned on the jets. And they pulled off a big upset here in Waco, Texas. A great race, too, by the Cyclones, getting third, only 10 points behind Oklahoma State.
Can you put that in perspective, how big this BYU upset is?
Well, I did not think it was going to happen here today. I think Oklahoma State on paper looks really good, but we know that these races aren't run on paper, and it matters how you run. And on this day, the BYU men take down the Cowboys and win their first men's Big 12 cross-country championship.
Unbelievable results here in Waco.
And we see Coach Ed Eyestone there congratulating his team. He could not be more happy for his guys. Wow.
You know, there's really no more beautiful place to run than Provo, Utah, but they have taken that beautiful show on the road here to Central Texas.
This race absolutely lived up to the hype. We knew it was going to be great with BYU, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, 1, 2, 4 rankings coming in, and I love an upset.
Oklahoma State second, Iowa State third. These are right now the results unofficially. Texas Tech fourth, and Colorado fifth. As far as the individuals, you see Brian Musau, Solomon Kipchoge, and Casey Klinger. When we saw him surge towards the front of the pack to second to third, you had a feeling something was happening for BYU.
Yeah, absolutely. The BYU men ran great. I see Davin Thompson looks like he got 15th too. That's a great comeback race for him. The Thompson twins for BYU, both former All-American runners in cross country.
Making some sweet music still.
We see Klinger got third place, a big low stick for the men.
Well, we'll step aside here, take a couple moments to let the shock sink in, and the reality of this huge upset for the Cougars. We are at Cottonwood Golf Course in Waco, Texas, site of the 2024 Big 12 Championships, cross-country style.
At the University of Arizona, we believe everyone is born with wonder. That thing that says, I will not accept this world that is, while it drives us to create what could be. That world can't wait to see what you'll do. Where your wonder will take you, and what it will make you. Start your journey at wonder.arizona.edu.
The scientists and engineers that support the next mission to Mars could be in this class.
Getting a degree at ASU is a journey that can take you anywhere. Into a world of groundbreaking technology and renowned award-winning faculty. Professors who help you to impact the world. Whether you're on campus or at home, becoming your best starts with learning from the best.
The University of Utah is set against the Wasatch Mountains. We ski, ride, and climb those mountains. As one of the leading research universities in the nation, we are working to eradicate cancer, seeking solutions for climate change, helping people walk again, and transforming mental health care. Our mission is to create unsurpassed societal impact. Sound lofty? It comes with the territory.
BYU is in Nepal, looking at the impacts of pollution from brick kilns on individuals and communities.
The goal of our research is to improve the working conditions and the lives of those people who work here.
I'm very happy to work with BYU. With this collaboration, we can do many more things.
You can change the lives of other people for the better if you're just willing to use the gifts which God has blessed you with.
The men's race, Brian Musau. Brian, congratulations on the victory.
Thank you very much.
Can you tell me a little bit about your mindset and focus going into this race today?
Okay, at first I knew that it's not going to be an easy race. It was hard a lot. For me, I put it like it's my national now. I was trying to test my body on how I will run the national, and then another thing, I was trying to defend my title because I won it last year. I wanted to defend it at least to achieve one of my goals. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. We saw you win it last year. You win it again this year, defending the title. Did the race play out today like you expected it would, or was there something that surprised you?
Yeah, a little bit. Some of the things that I was expecting did happen because I knew those guys from Texas are going to push very hard because I know they are very fast. So for me, I just told myself I can handle their pace, the thing is I'm not going to show my cards first. I'm going to just to let them to do their work so that when it's my time, I'm going to do the thing.
Absolutely. It looked like you ran a really smart race, holding back early before making your decisive move. What's the focus now for both you and the team as you look to come off this Big 12 race and focus back on regionals and then nationals?
Okay, the thing is, for our team, we were coming to defend our title, but that's some of our guys they didn't have a good day. So it's not that we have lost. We always come to win or to learn. So we have already learned something today. Because it's not like obvious to win everything every time because you won't learn anything. So today we have learned something. We have learned where we're going to make the correction on the mistake that we did. So we're still on. We're going to defend our title. God willing, be just praying for God to give us good health. So we're going to work on our mistakes here and there, and then to strengthen our weakness.
Absolutely, yeah. We saw a great team battle between you, BYU, and Iowa State. Congratulations again on the championship, and best of luck to you and the Oklahoma State men as you go to regionals and nationals.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick break right now, and we'll be back in a moment with the winner, with the coach of the winning team, BYU men's coach Ed Eyestone. We'll be right back.
Audibles in the middle with the big gun.
For
but running, putting down our whole
title, Coach Ed Eyestone from the BYU men. Congratulations on the victory. Big upset here today. Tell us how you guys got it done.
Well, you know, our whole hope coming into this is that we could make it a good race. We knew Oklahoma State has amazing talent, have some horses that have run really fast on the track, and they've been kicking butt, putting down really fast times all cross-country season, but they really haven't gone head-to-head against big competition in the past. So my hope was maybe putting some bodies up there with them, they might go, wow, we're not going 1 through 10 like we normally do. So I think we did a good job putting pressure on early, and then when my guys saw that they were back, and you know, at one point I didn't see all the splits, but at one point I know we were down about 15 points, maybe halfway through, but we were still close enough, and we wanted to put Casey Klinger out there in front to race with the big guns, and then just pack it up 2 through 6 if we could, and they did a great job. For a while we had a lot of orange in front of us, but I think they didn't give up. They took heart. They knew this is an 8K race, not a 6K race. Really proud with the way they responded over the last 2K. I assumed, you know, it was going to be a close one, but maybe Oklahoma State would get us and would try to get them at nationals. So the fact that we had as many good passes late in the race, that's good for me as I look at it, because we're stepping from 8K to 10K as we go to the national meet. The fact that we were finishing strong over 8K generally indicates that over 10K you're going to be able to do the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. We saw some splits as more insight into what was going on, which was nice. But like you said, the BYU men were never that far behind the Oklahoma State men. What kind of things do you scream at the guys with a K to go as they smell an upset's coming?
At that point in time, it just comes down to intuition and just stating the obvious. Hey, we got a chance. Do some passes, catch orange. We got this. So it was more, you know, taking in the game and assessing what needs to be done. Early on, you know, the guys have their own little power statements here. I have them here on my arm so I can yell them out, give them some specific instructions. We weren't calling audibles in the middle, but we were just Casey's going to be, stick, decide, flip the switch. All the guys have their sayings that they want to know. At my age, I have a hard time remembering 10 guys' aphorisms, but I had a little cheat sheet here. But the bottom line is they just ran. It's not rocket science, is it? You just get out, you try to pace yourself, you see where you are relative to the other guys, and then you respond late. Super pleased with the way they responded late.
Absolutely, and you guessed what I was going to ask about next.
Yeah.
I saw you walking around with an audible sheet. It looked like a quarterback of a team.
Our 800-meter runners actually came up with this idea and told their coach, Coach Wade, about it. So he ordered them up and he pulled them out and went, that's kind of hokey, but my memory is such that I'm happy to write some things down to be able to yell something in crucial moments. But you know what? Late in the race, it's more like, hey, we got a chance to win this thing. Catch some people here, we're going to win this thing. And so even up until I got to and saw the finish board, I assumed we had gotten second, but we had some crucial passes over that last K, and that will win you a lot of meets.
Absolutely. What's the focus now as you look to turn the page and move on to regionals and nationals, where obviously you hope to repeat this same sort of performance up in Wisconsin?
I don't think we do enough celebrating in this sport. Everything is, I'm so focused for the national meet. That's important. The national meet is the most important meet. But you know what? The Big 12 Conference Championships, BYU's in the Big 12 now. We want to compete. We want to win. Other coaches are doing things to make sure that they have their best chance to win. We're going to do what we need to do to make sure we have a good chance to win. So we won the Big 12 championship. This is the first men's cross-country team to do so. We're going to celebrate this. We know that every year Oklahoma State, Iowa State, other schools are going to be very strong as well. So we're going to celebrate. We're going to enjoy this. We're going to have a good week. Obviously, we've got to do some work. We realize our most important race is the national meet, but this is the second most important one, and you know what? We're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I love to hear that, Coach. Great race, both for the men and the women.
Yes.
You guys get the men's and women's championship here in your second year in the Big 12 Conference. We certainly love having BYU in the Big 12. It makes for some great racing in cross country. So congratulations again on the championship, and best of luck to you guys at regionals and nationals.
Thank you. You guys do a great job. Happy that my family